Thank you for joining us today as we discuss our recent study, How to Message Plant-Based Diets and Products in Southeast Asia, a social media analysis, done in collaboration between Faunalytics and Good Growth. I'm Jenna Reedy, and I'm the Communications Manager at Faunalytics. We conduct essential research, maintain an online research library, and directly support advocates and organizations in their work to save lives.
Hi, my name is Ella Wong, and I lead projects at Good Growth. We focus on research and design that promotes sustainable food systems in Asia, and we're happy to partner with Faunalytics to conduct this study.
All right, so about this study. Southeast Asia is a critical region for animal advocacy. It's home to more than 9 billion farmland animals, and its incredible diversity in religion, language, and culture makes it both a vital and complex place to create positive change for animals, especially when it comes to encouraging plant-based diets. Past research has shown that plant-based advocacy in Southeast Asia comes with unique opportunities and challenges. For instance, while Western consumers often view plant-based meats as less healthy because they're processed, that same concern doesn't seem to carry as much weight with many Southeast Asian consumers. However, despite the potential advantage, a recent study found that only 21% of people in the region say they intend to reduce their meat consumption, and just as many say they plan to eat more meat, particularly chicken and fish. This creates a big question for advocates. What messages actually work? Most consumer research on plant-based diets focuses on Western audiences, so there's still a lot we don't know about what resonates in Southeast Asia. To help fill this gap, our study set out to do three things. First, identify audiences in Southeast Asia that are the most open to pro-animal diet change. Second, explore where these consumers are getting their information and inspiration. And third, determine which messages might be the most effective for encouraging plant-based eating. This study uses mixed methods, including both a literature review of existing consumer studies in the region and an analysis of social media posts from Southeast Asian users, also known as social media listening. The report focuses on 6 key Southeast Asian countries: Thailand, the Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia, which form the largest economies in the region. And specifically, our research questions that we asked in this study. First, what are the main motivations, barriers, and misconceptions that Southeast Asians have towards reducing animal products and adopting plant-based diets? Second, which segments of the population in our selected Southeast Asian countries are most likely to be open to pro-animal diet change? And third, what are promising communication strategies to encourage these segments? What types of messages do they respond to or resonate with? And now I'll turn it over to Ella to get into the key findings and recommendations.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Jenna. Today we'll share a bit on some of our key findings, recommendations, starting with the first one. So what we found in this study that actually we conducted with GFI APAC is some of the key consumer segments that may be more open to plant-based diets in Southeast Asia tend to be higher income, well-educated, health conscious, and also older. So while specific segments might vary across countries, advocates might want to consider targeting these groups with their campaigns. We also found that people looking for protein diversification, so wanting to try all different types of meat and not meat types of protein, and those who are reducing red meat might also be most interested in alternative proteins. And then from the social listening data, we found the biggest motivations for adopting plant-based diets are health, which comprises over 40% of all the mentions about motivation, animal protection, and environment were secondary. Health-wise, a lot of the users mentioned disease prevention, weight management, and overall better well-being as motivators to adopt plant-based diets. Animal protection and ethical concerns were the second biggest motivation, but this does seem to be primarily driven by some passionate supporters of the cause online rather than mainstream consumers. So this might suggest that the influence of these narratives might be limited. And finally, users also linked plant-based diets to reducing carbon emissions, deforestation, and mitigating climate disasters. While there were a lot of motivations that were mentioned on why people would adopt plant-based diets, barriers are still there. So over 20% of mentions related to barriers mentioned adoption of plant-based diets might affect nutritional sufficiency, energy levels, and protein intake. We'll discuss some of the other barriers later, but one that I like to point out now is there was also some pushback about the climate benefits of adopting plant-based and how livestock contributes to soil regeneration, food resilience, and farmer livelihoods. And so that these users thought it would be necessary to have animal agriculture. So unique to Southeast Asia, there's a variety of religions that are very prevalent and important in the region, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam. And they have different impacts on how people think about plant-based diets, both positive and negative. So Buddhism and Hinduism encourage plant-based diets, vegetarianism, with many followers committing to it during religious holidays as acts of thanksgiving. And this motivation was particularly strong in Malaysia and Thailand. But in a way, this also limits plant-based adoption as these religious doctrines also permit varying levels of animal product consumption. And for those who are not religious, they may not understand why one would be vegetarian without being religious. On the other hand, Islamic traditions like sacrificial slaughter and strong cultural beliefs around meat can also act as a barrier to meat reduction, particularly in Indonesia and Malaysia, where 12% of barrier-related posts referenced religious norms. So cost and accessibility concerns are definitely top of mind for a lot of consumers across Southeast Asia. But cost savings, on the other hand, from adopting plant-based diets are also a motivation for some consumers in Indonesia and Vietnam. 16% of barrier-related posts cited cost as a major deterrent. The newer alternative protein products are significantly more expensive than meat in many countries and is viewed as a luxury. But a minority of posts in Indonesia and Vietnam as well also reference reducing meat due to rising prices. So this suggests an opportunity to position plant-based diets as cost-effective in these markets. There was also a study in Vietnam that suggests lower income groups are more open to adopting plant-based diets due to lower costs. Next is negative perceptions of pro plant-based advocates can also create resistance. And we definitely see that more so online, especially in Singapore and Thailand. So around 10% of barrier-related posts express negative views of vegans and plant-based advocates, describing them as judgmental, overly critical, or idealistic. So that might be things that we would want to avoid, especially in the region. And we've also found that meat cravings and taste preferences do limit long-term adoption of plant-based diets for some people, particularly in the Philippines. But on the other hand, many who embrace plant-based diets also see taste more as a motivator than a barrier. In the Philippines in particular, about 7% of barrier-related posts specifically talked about meat cravings, the highest among all the countries. And this is perhaps not surprising, as Filipino cuisine is quite meat heavy, and especially among affordable options like fast food. Across the region, a lot more consumers are open to occasional meat reduction rather than full plant-based diets, and some are only willing to replace red meat, but not seafood or poultry. Lastly, taste does remain an issue, but mostly for those who are not so familiar with the alternatives. So for those who are already plant-based, taste was actually 5 times more likely to be mentioned as a motivator than a barrier in their social media posts. And in terms of key sources of influence on why people adopt plant-based diets, the top one were celebrities, news media, and advocacy groups. So other sources also included academia, brands, religious leaders, international organizations like UN, WHO, local community leaders, and governments. The outsized mentions of celebrities, which included people like Fuji Kaze, who's a Japanese musician, Nadine Lustre, who's a Filipino actress, Lewis Hamilton, who's a F1 driver, and films like Okja and You Are What You Eat suggest that entertainment and leveraging key influencers might be ways to promote plant-based eating to consumers. Great. So now we'll move on to what this means and some recommendations we might have for your advocacy campaigns. So definitely, as many advocates might know already, using health messaging would be more likely the primary entry point for work in Southeast Asia, really highlighting key benefits of plant-based eating, like improved general well-being, disease prevention, weight management, better digestion, are all top-of-mind benefits for many consumers. However, there is something to be aware of when with these health messages, and that's the small animal replacement problem, which because results when a lot of consumers replace red meat, which they see as more unhealthy, with fish or poultry, and this would cause significantly more animal lives and suffering. So to mitigate this, the emphasis really needs to be on how plant-based can fully replace the nutritional, health, and even taste needs of all different types of animal protein. And then lastly, just some recommendations in terms of messaging that we have. One is to partner with trusted experts to share credible information on plant-based nutrition. Second one is to reframe tofu, tempeh, jackfruit, other local sources as nutritious, first of all, low cost, and also modern, staples for the modern diet. Third one would be to work with faith groups and tailor messages to fit spiritual and cultural norms, but to also be aware that that would exclude some other consumers as well. And then is to frame plant-based diets as suitable for all religions, especially in institutions. So how plant-based meals could be the most inclusive option in institutions like schools, hospitals, etc. Then is to focus on the health conscious, value driven key consumer segments who are more likely to adopt plant-based already. And in terms of messaging, to keep it positive, avoid judgment, and promote small steps and relatable role models. And as we mentioned just now, partnering with admired public figures and celebrities to boost the lifestyle appeal and to make plant-based eating more aspirational. And then lastly is to create local documentaries or reality TV type content to inspire change. And we've seen that some local groups in Asia, like Vive in Vietnam, are already doing that.
Great. Thank you, Ella. And we did have one question that was submitted. So I'll ask that of you. The
Sure.
question is, what are other surprising findings not included in the key findings?
Sure. Yeah. So this was kind of an unexpected finding because we were trying to focus on food, plant-based diets. But actually, when we searched the term vegan in the social listening exercise, we found that there was a very high prevalence of mentions of vegan cosmetics, particularly in Thailand. Actually, around 13% of the posts discussed vegan cosmetics. And we think that this is perhaps understudied because we've seen in Asia more and more cosmetics brands, especially Korean beauty brands, which are very popular in the region, advertise their product as vegan. And so I think what would be interesting for researchers is to find out, what is appealing to consumers in terms of why brands want to advertise themselves as vegan, and could we extend similar messaging to food and diets?
That's awesome. That's exciting. I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
it's definitely very interesting. And also, yeah, I'm not really sure what the cause is behind that.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. Well, that's always, I love that. I think this is the first time we've done this, is doing that social media listening to try to gauge, what people are talking about and what they care about. And that's such
Yeah.
a fascinating way to really, get the finger on the pulse. So, how cool. Well, wonderful. Thank you for those who are watching this. Thank you for joining us. We do encourage you to check out the full report. There's a lot of details in there, including more details on the key findings as well as our recommendations. And we only covered recommendations for the advocates, but we have additional recommendations in there as well. The link to the study is in our video description here and as well linked on this slide. If you think of any questions later, please reach out to us either by sending us an email. You can see the email here on the screen. We welcome you to visit our office hours. Both Faunalytics and Good Growth hold virtual free office hours for you. Or you can send us a direct message here where you're watching this video and we'll respond to you there. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us and thanks, Jenna.